They have a very talented lineup. How much talent is on this team?
There goes Nevix.
Gaining some more progress.
That's a duel I've been loving to watch.
So a fantastic start for Philadelphia.
Ooh, Nevix comes in.
What a spectacle, man.
Wow, Baby Bay has just been on fire.
This is good tide for the first showing of the Philly boys.
With a perfectly placed Diva Bomb, Bren.
Yeah, so this is super interesting. Again, he's still the #1 player in terms of Diva Bombs per 10 minutes. And you can see this kind of stuff is what the pro players practice on a regular basis.
It's his reaction time. Dante has the Pulse Bomb loaded up. Everyone from Shock has the advantage coming into this fight, and Carpe flips it on its head. How does he do this?
Yeah, this is a really sort of high mechanic skill sort of play. There is a decent window of opportunity to do this, but it requires you to save your recall ability, and it completely dislodges the actual Pulse Bomb away from you. If you miss the timing, you're going to mess it up and you're going to get killed.
What was going right here for the Fusion? Starting off with the San Francisco Shock attack, the first thing we saw, Baby Bay now running the Genji.
Yeah, and the way that they were attacking, they were expecting Philadelphia Fusion, as Monty said, to be set up on the left-hand side. They kind of gave him the jukes a little bit. There was sniper shots coming out from Carpe on the opposite side, and at that point, the ultimate advantage swings in favor of Fusion before you've even got a chance to really cement your position. And so Fusion were given the advantage right from the off.
Brent, we are pointing out the support ultimates for anyone who is new at home when we say that the Shock...
Yeah, so in general, it was looking pretty good for Shock to begin with. This first initial round, they looked strong. Their playstyle was definitely sort of focusing the Carpe and Shadowburn, sort of trying to get them out of position. Baby Bay on McCree was a big sort of powerhouse player in the reasoning why they took this first map in the end. However, it didn't look too hot in the follow-up rounds at all as it was going into it.
Yeah, and even on this map, it's got to be said that they went to a 99-0 lead, and the Philadelphia Fusion was still able to come back and almost steal it away from them. So still a little bit unstable on this point.
Yeah. And this combo was so beautiful. Perfect graviton by Shadowburn, catches everybody, and then Poco. I have to ask you guys, as we watch the highlights here between Carpe and Baby Bay, how do these two players compare on the Widowmaker against all the other Widowmakers in the Overwatch League?
So these two guys are some of the best snipers in the entirety of the Overwatch League. The only people who really hold a candle to them are going to be some of the Korean players, Fleta in particular for Seoul Dynasty, and you might look at Pine as well.
Fusion still wins this series 2-1.
Yeah, they do. Philadelphia had just all they had to do was get that draw on that final map to go ahead and win the series.
This might be over pretty quickly now if Seoul can strike yet another.
Ooh, but Florida responding in a big way.
My God!
Vic fighting the duel here.
To the skies goes Zunba.
That's going to be it. A really solid attack round for Florida.
Fleta's doing so much work right now. Seoul will take the series.
A pretty resounding win for Florida Mayhem.
Seoul Dynasty. They're not done yet, Matt.
Yeah, in general, Florida looked like they didn't really have much cohesion coming into this. They had the game plan in mind, and we talked about in the pre-show about how they needed to shut down Fleta, but however, they just could not do it. The guy had ridiculous statistics coming out of this first map. Fleta ended up killing it to Vic 5 times, whereas Vic only killed him once. And again, with Logix. Logix managed to kill him twice, but Fleta ended up on top with 6 kills against them. So both the DPSs on Florida Mayhem made it
into and around the side of Guido and basically the support line of Seoul Dynasty. Guido managed to get the pick off twice when Logix was trying to escape after an unfavorable engagement. Logix didn't manage to pick him once. So with Logix taking these big flanking routes and trying to get the picks onto the supports, this
the Widowmaker, but still causing massive issues. In fact, a lot of these clips is going to be him getting these kills with the Junkrat Riptire onto the ulting Mercy. So taking that Valkyrie out of the team fights every single time. Zubi just couldn't seem to get it off consistently and actually win the team fights with it. You can see here, he's going to be making these plays all day long, mainly down to his team helping him with positioning, but he was making plays like this consistently throughout the entire match.
And we talk a little bit about plans from Florida Mayhem, and with their switch over here so that Zebaside's on the Lucio rather than being on Widowmaker as he was at the beginning, this team looked like they didn't quite have Oasis is historically a pretty good map for Florida Mayhem because Tvik is so excellent at the Pharah, but he got a masterclass coming out from Fleta here. Fleta dominated that battle on Gardens, hitting some incredible directs. This was unbelievable. 3 directs in a row demolishes the opposing Pharah Mercy combo and then rains down that barrage from above. So fantastic performance from him on that stage in particular.
Yeah, and we've got some interesting statistics as well to bring out this a little bit later on as well between these direct Pharah matchups. But overall, Fleta just absolutely dominated it. Florida had to adapt their game plan when they were coming up against Fleta on the Pharah because they just couldn't focus in this Pharah v Pharah duel. Instead, they adapted it. They tried to focus onto the ground war itself. It didn't quite work out for them.
Came into this one and he was able to run the Reinhardt to a fairly effective degree. And he had a pretty stellar performance to allow them to take the point.
We're going to keep the highlights rolling as we're trying to stay on schedule here. As we get into the Eichenwald, though, we had our eyes on Tavik. That was the player we wanted to watch from the start. We said, if you're going to beat Seoul...
He should have done. Because Toby's got the Valkyrie, and he knows that the entirety of Mayhem, as this very aggressive team that have a singular kind of focus, are just going to try and take down Fleta. He gets juggled all over the map, but at no point is there anybody trying to flank.
We're close, at least to erecting some kind of defense there, man.
In that pick by Fleta forces Zupe to use the Transcendence just to keep Zebo alive, to bring Logix back into the fight.
Houston Outlaws with a big opportunity here. Shanghai Dragons untouchable at this point. Oh, the disrespect. Jake, this guy's game sense is just on the next level, man. Oh, but the kill's coming back around for the Shanghai Dragons. He was already dead, man.
What was working for the Outlaws?
Yeah, look, Shanghai has a strategy coming into this, and they actually managed to hold them a little bit on point A. But as soon as they got this first defense out of the way, the Houston Outlaws kept it rolling. Raucus did not have to switch off this Bastion for basically the entire time. Shanghai, I think, kind of won half a fight towards the end of the map. But as soon as Houston got that single pick, Shanghai didn't have the coordination to be able to rebuild and form a defense at any of the rest of the points.
Across the board, I gotta say, a big part of the reasoning why Shanghai...
Jake was going off not only on the Soldier, but the Junkrat once again.
Yeah, he was, and this map plays, and Junkertown as well, they both play perfectly into his wheelhouse in terms of the heroes that he can play. He's excellent at the Junkrat. We saw him with a huge amount of damage being poured out and areas completely locked off, and then he's able to play Soldier here on the attack as Outlaws put the Dragons to bed. But it was also the strategy. We came into this saying that Dragons had a plan. They knew how to defend. They'd even full-held San Francisco Shock. But the Outlaws have seen the game tape. They cracked it open within seconds. They were able to take that one incredibly quickly.
Yeah. And when we watched this, Bren, we heard the comment
that this team realizes there's a little bit of an issue with how they've been using their subs. They were winless on Control coming into this one, and they put Linkser in on the Tracer. He's got more of an aggressive style than Clockwork. Arguably a slightly better player as well. I think it's kind of more to do with the style that he's got.
Okay.
That allows a little bit of pressure to be taken off Jake in the sky and a couple of the tanks, and they win the ground war rather than just waiting for the enemy to aggress into them.
What did you think of Houston Outlaws in general today on Oasis?
It was a lot more promising, to be honest. In the past, I guess we've seen Houston not being played at their full potential. What it really all took was Linkser being subbed in my opinion, because there was difference in play style between him and Clockwork. Clockwork tends to be a little bit more patient and passive in terms of his
team positioning, for sure. Here, Roshan caught out of position. MG is too slow to react, no heals. Roshan dives in really aggressively again. Twice, he's the first pick. And then again, switching over to a...
And Houston Outlaws will take a very neat and tidy 4-0 over Shanghai Dragons.
Outlaws now sitting at 1-2. They've got a lot of momentum after the initial losses to Philly and NYXL. And speaking of Philly, they improved their series count with a win over the Shock, and Seoul Dynasty become our first team to go 3-0.
I couldn't think of a better way to start this rivalry. Houston Outlaws with a big opportunity here in the Texas Showdown.
Gobat stealing all the glory.
Linkser finds a kill onto Coco. I move for the kill. Pretty convincing win from Houston Outlaws. Dallas Fuel will barely come out on top.
Dallas approach, Crumbs.
Yeah, this was just a stomp, really, from the first two maps. But you can see here, Linkser, he actually hit a 33% scoped accuracy on Widowmaker. That's a critical hit scope, by the way. That is insane. Typically, people are averaging 15. That's over double.
I'm happy with 30% for just my scoped accuracy, not the critical accuracy. This was absolutely ridiculous. Jake on the Junkrat impressed across both maps, using those tires incredibly well. But it's really just a team cohesion issue that seems to be happening here, Ian.
Well, they're playing pretty straightforward, Dallas Fuel. They're playing Widowmaker and Hanzo. I'm going to go more in depth about that later on. But I'm just...
A lot of confidence coming in from Dallas Fuel. They get the high ground, and then Jake just shuts them down with his Junkrat once again.
Well, you have to remember that the Junkrat versus Tracer matchup is pretty damn difficult for the Tracer because one single mine with a damage boost is enough to take you out. But the real issue here for me was Dallas overall. Sure, Houston looked impressive, but the tank diving coordination from the field was all over the place. I think we saw one instance where they actually dove together when the team was respawning. There was just no chance of anything actually
on the Widowmaker, for example. But they keep playing this very slow composition with the Orisa and the Junkrat and the Roadhog. And when they're not getting these picks, they're not really winning any fights. And because Houston Outlaws are playing these high mobile heroes, the Tracer and the Genji, they get to set up the fights how they want to, and they dictate how the fights go.
We saw so many incredible Genji plays, and I have to ask, you see this Genji going off mid-game, how do you counter it? What do you switch out?
Well, your tanks actually are typically more see him enter the role of a projectile specialist. He's got the Junkrat, he's got the Genji, the Pharah as well, and he's just been making chop suey out of the entire Dallas Fuel lineup. And we actually get a nice little bonus here where he's going to give us an interpretive dance of what happened to the Dallas Fuel this game.
Oh no!
This earlier when it no longer matters. Right, so you sub him in, bam, immediately deals with the Pharah, and now he goes and is actually going to be able to deal with the Winston right away. And the point is pretty much capped at that point.
The sweep. Dallas definitely did not expect this result coming into this series. You were thinking it was going to be a bit more competitive between the two.
And the Valiant are back on the move again. You wanted a blockbuster match? Sabiobi is also here. Now Pine's starting to feel it.
It's going to be 2 kills, make it 3 for Envy.
Silk Thread now, keeping the train rolling straight on. Sabiobi coming out on top in a lot of these engagements. It's almost impossible to see how he managed to do it. A decisive opening to this series. And on the LA, on the attack.
It was a question mark, how are they going to break it? And finally in overtime, they managed to swap to Libero on the Genji, of course. So I'm really stunned by New York Excelsior's ability to swap between all of these heroes and all these strategies. We have Jonak on the Bastion, and then on Senjara he's fragging even more. And then Libero can play the Hanzo, can play the Genji, and McCree.
That shot. That shot was probably the most impressive thing outside of Meko chasing people down as the Diva. But as we look through, Johnny, this is what you're talking about. They switched to the dive comp. When do you want to make this major adjustment, moving away from
out of the New York Excel? We're actually looking at them.
These are the general highlights here. Let's start with just some of the best moments. And Sabiobi went off a Tracer. You said he's one of the best Tracers. What do you think of his Roadhog?
Well, the Roadhog is really good as well. I mean, we've seen for a very long time in the Korean meta over in Apex, we saw a lot of triple tanks, etc. About a year ago, and Sabiobi back then, he was also a very proficient Roadhog, and that was back when Taimo, for example, was playing the Roadhog as well. So all of these DPS players, they have the Roadhog pick up their sleeve, and they're finally coming out here.
All right, we saw a pretty nice attack from New York. They weren't able to composition, a much slower composition. Meanwhile, Houston, very agile, very mobile. We got basically the same thing here in this one, with LA Valiant being very mobile and New York Excelsior being that death ball.
Yes, but they had Pine in the lineup. Welcome to the Pine show. Just popping up on the McCree. And the thing about Pine is they're playing a very slow composition on the side of New York Excelsior, but Pine is playing so proactively. He's always trying to look for these picks, and it makes it so hard for the Valiant to set up their dives correctly and find spots of weaknesses. If they dive onto Pine, there is so much room for risk in their dives.
Start off with the Valiant soon. In the opening game, we saw the Pharah come in. Libero on that Pharah was just wrecking house up until they were able to slow things down on this second stage. Johnny, just talk me through how New York opened up on their attack.
Well, actually, Jonak just got a pick. And that's pretty much how they secure the fight.
That's all it is.
We've seen it time and time again. Jonak gets the picks. He got a pick onto Silk Thread. And what do you do have to counter the Pharah? No, Libero was just free. He didn't have any pressure from a Soldier or a McCree or any kind of hit scan. I mean, Anko maybe on a
switch from New York on the attack.
Yeah, so you want to play the Soldier here, I think, because it is a bit more passive, and I think they prefer it a bit. Libero on the Soldier, he played real well, but it was a bit of a misplay from Envy, I think, in both of these fights, because he didn't shut him down with the defense matrix. We saw on point B, for example, Envy used this.
A staunch defense from the Los Angeles Valiant means that the map stays.
Los Angeles Gladiators have got a full head of steam. What a strong start.
He just dashes on through players.
And Asher, all he has to do is clean up.
Billy!
The triple DPS as Shaz finds all the kills.
4 kills here starting to go in way of Philadelphia. Kills him again.
Poco gets 3. It's a self-destruct bonanza.
Start out with Philadelphia, of course. Carpe, it's the same old story. This guy just goes ham on the individual skill here. And I just don't think that the Los Angeles Gladiators can keep up with this so far. We saw Hydration and Asher trying to dive, but so far Shadowburn and Carpe are just too much in this matchup.
And it was too much to handle for iRemix, who had a bit of a rough one on Junkertown. I think that him ended up getting killed by every member that was not Mercy at least 2 times.
Back at some of the highlights to see how we got there. Here is Shaz, one of the support players from the Gladiators. We talk about his Zenyatta. He was on point with his Ana throughout as well.
He switched to the Ana because unfortunately his Zenyatta just was not on point today. Boombox ended up hitting 9 final blows by himself on the Zen, whereas Shaz had a mere 0.
Now as we take a look at some of the damage dealers, Shadowburn, when you think about this man, yes, he has a great
already in. He's just been so patient. This is right after killing the Winston on the side, and then he waits for the trance to go out, and then he goes for it. So he's been waiting on that ultimate all day long. Because
laid out with the junk bed and of course the tires. He gets tons of kills with these. And his Hydration and Surefour, they have sort of the similar role. Both of them are playing the projectile heroes, but Surefour is the more passive of the two, playing the Junkrat. We also saw the Reaper, and he can play the hit scan. So Surefour, one of my favorite players here. And he gets Poco, he went to the other side of the point, which is a bit too deep. So maybe halfway there, at least touch the point.
As we take a look at some of the general highlights here, this is what we were talking about. Yeah, there's 2 Pharas up in the sky, but Asher with that single pulse bomb gets the Mercy, sends the Winston flying, and then really, Hydration, able to get some big knocks in this game.
Yeah, I really thought before this matchup that Shadowburn was going to be able to prove Hydration that he was a superior Phara, but that was not the case at all. Hydration showed up huge in the
standout players. Asher had a great game. Well, you put him on the bench after game 3, and you let Surefour come into play with Hydration. What was the plan from the Gladiators?
Well, the plan from the Gladiators is playing, of course, we saw the Doomfist coming out of Hydration, which was a big surprise, but it actually shut down the flankers from Philadelphia Fusion quite a lot, because if you're hit by that one punch into a wall, you're dead. And so that forces Philadelphia Fusion to slow down their game quite a lot because of that Doomfist pick. And also we saw
they brought it into this final control.
It was triple DPS. Triple DPS. I'm so happy I finally get to see it, because they speed up the tempo so hard. We saw Surefour, who is one of the most dangerous players on this squad. We saw Hydration up in the sky on the Pharah, creating so much pressure, and then Asher, of course, he started popping up on Ilios, and he just carried the momentum forward. So the Los Angeles Gladiators, getting the 2 last maps, they just carried the momentum.
And the Gladiators said that they wanted to play their own game, but by playing the triple DPS, they actually forced Philly to do the same thing. They had to switch into the Widowmaker to try to deal with Surefour's Widow, and that just was so late that it bought so much time, and by the time we got to the second point here, out of the Gladiators was very different from what Philly... I saw composure here out of this team. They're down 0-2, and they actually pulled through way harder than any other time. They were composed against Seoul Dynasty before as well, so I think that this team being able to showcase that they can manage their emotions carries them a long ways. We've seen many other teams be able or be unable to deal with their emotions when it comes to game day.
The true MVP of this match is our crowd in the front row. Shout out to making the peacock crumbs.
And the Gladiators run it back. They go down 0-2 at the beginning of this series and then win the following 3 maps. The W is theirs, and the Gladiators stand tall on home turf.
The Seoul versus the Outlaws coming in. We thought this one would be so close, but instead, it's the Houston Outlaws walking away with a 4-0, Johnny.
Seoul Dynasty, they come already having built a dynasty, and they're looking to build a new one, Matt.
Oh, but Dreamcasper has the blade out, looking for kills, gets Roshan.
Is doggedly pursuing that kill.
And Boston, they may have done it, resoundingly winning that fight.
Jayhawk just knows what he wants. Seoul Dynasty bringing things back here now. Looks like they're in complete control. Should be proud. The lethal blow. What a game!
Seoul Dynasty, they gave up the first 2 points. Boston started to roll really on their attack, but then Seoul really turned the game around. As we look at some of the highlights though, Johnny, I know we were focused early on the Bastion, Neko, normally a support player bringing out one of the star DPS. but later in the game, it became all about the tanks.
Yes, it did. We saw both teams playing dive here, and Miro, he was opting for that Winston. I said maybe plan for the Orisa, it is Junkertown after all, but it was the aggressive dives from Seoul Dynasty that really shut down Boston Uprising. And maybe they, Monte Cristo mentioned that often Miro actually overextends in a lot of these fights, but it's just a distraction to really create so much space for the rest of Seoul Dynasty. We see Primal Rage repeatedly being popped, and he's just smashing people in the backline all the time. But it grants so much space to Fleta, and also Boston can't really handle this big Winston, because as I mentioned, we see Dreamcasper on the McCree.
An initial stop to the attack from Seoul, but from there, it seemed that Seoul really started to take over the map. They were slowly able to grind out point B.
Well, it was more of the same. I think it was Zoe who mentioned at the desk also that the coaches of Seoul Dynasty said that Boston is really predictable. The only strat they have going for them is this dive. And so Seoul really just figured Boston out, that they keep winning these fights, they keep diving with Miro, etc. And Boston really don't know what to do about it. So we keep them, they try to find different routes. Is Gamsu going to dive deep? Or is he going to peel?
Well, they were both playing Pharah Mercy, as is often the way on these stages of Oasis. But then when it came to University, we saw a different look coming out from Boston Uprising. Gamsu over on the Reinhardt. They had this triple tank strategy going forwards, and Seoul put on a masterclass, really, of how to deal with that with their dive. It was phenomenal to see. But what's great from the Boston Uprising's point of view is that they seem to be starting to diversify the strategies that they can bring into different stages, and they do look decent.
That we saw out of Seoul. Dreamcasper on defense was forced over to the 76, and it seemed to be paying dividends.
Yes, we actually saw the Soldier coming out of Dreamcasper. We have seen a lot of teams favor the Soldier, especially on Numbani, trying to shut down the Pharah of Fleta initially, but it didn't really work out. Especially when you have Toby just flying around and getting mercy kills. Rejong as it comes in as well, gets picks. And Calyx overall through this series got picked off quite a lot compared to the counterparts on Seoul Dynasty. So maybe calm down his aggressiveness a bit on the Mercy.
And I think for Calyx as well, something you see with Toby and Seoul Dynasty
is too strong, and they will take the 4-0. Another impressive showing from Seoul Dynasty.
I love it. Swoosh leading the pony ride to the stage. These guys are coming in at 0-3 as well after falling to the London Spitfire. They dropped to the Boston Uprising and eventually to the Seoul Dynasty.
Yeah, but I have to say, their game against Seoul was actually really strong. I loved what we saw out of Twig on the second map on Horizon. You really showed up on that Zaza. Love it.
A lot going for Florida Mayhem here as they go on the attack. Shanghai Dragons will go ahead and win that attack round. Zebasai firing from on high. Roshan back on the point right now. That's nice. Dia does get another one. There's one more. But Tavik says, no problem, man. I got the barrage. Gets a couple there, and Logic's with the cleanup.
We started off with the Soldier, of course, and this is something they've run in the past, utilizing the high guard onto Dorado. But of course, then we saw him flex onto the Tracer, and that has been the shining hero of Logic, which we talked about in the pre-game. Hasn't really been his best hero thus far in the Overwatch League, but going up against Shanghai Dragons, he gets a lot more space onto that Tracer, and I mean, he's just popped off the series.
Sancho, after watching these highlights, why would you ever take Logic's off of the Soldier 76?
He is fantastic on it, but he really made his name on Tracer, and in previous methods throughout 2017, Tracer was by far and away the most important hero.
Well, Logic's is kind of playing back on the Soldier. Tavik started off early on playing the Tracer role.
Yes, he played the Tracer, and that's initially because they want to flex to the Widowmaker later on, where he got all of those picks. Once again, because the Shanghai Dragons tanks, Chishu and MG, jump towards the payload and play a lot more objective, sometimes diving onto Sebasai and Supe. Twig has so much space on the Widowmaker, constantly going for flanks. We saw it on Anubis, point A, where Twig was often in a pretty awkward position, away from the Florida Mayhem squad, just so he could find those picks. And when Chishu on the Winston isn't jumping on Twig.
Half, what was happening here for the Dragons?
They were struggling really to establish a foothold in point A. We said at the beginning that their Widowmaker, whoever was playing it, Undead or Dia, it ended up being Undead, would have to go huge if they were going to have a chance of being able to win Anubis. Unfortunately, we didn't. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Just such a cool pulse bomb coming out from Logix. But we saw Undead play some of these projectile heroes. He was playing the Pharah. This is Shanghai Dragons diversifying the heroes that they're able to play on. And previously we saw this from Dia, so they've got the flexibility on their DPS players, but they were unable to really pull it through to secure.
At some of these highlights, who were the players really standing out for the squad?
There were definitely two big players, I thought. That MG had a much improved performance over what we saw from him in previous games for Shanghai Dragons, and this tank synergy was massively improved. That gave so much more room for Undead to come out with his stellar McCree play. And so this is the kind of...
And picking up the third point and a 4-0 victory over Shanghai.
Here we go. That was just really well done by Dallas Fuel. Might be able to win this fight. Let's see if they can do it. XQC jumping in, doing damage.
That was a masterclass from the Spitfire.
Looks like Dallas is going to hold for just a bit longer. And that will be it. Dallas Fuel.
That's going to hurt in the morning, though.
Strategy for the majority of this map, both on offense and defense. Taimu able to play a position where he can have a lot of impact over on the Roadhog, and Effect was having a big impact on the Widowmaker when they began. Switch off the Tracer for various different portions, but they also kept running the triple tank all the way to the end of the map as well, which is slightly unusual, not something you'd normally see.
Well, it can work as anti-dive composition. As I said in the pre-game, of course, Birdring and Prophet running the Genji and Tracer dives, so triple tank has a good time staying alive versus those dives. But I think the London Spitfire here on the Reaper as well on the first point, there with a huge flank coming in, getting around the entire Dallas Fuel squad. And then you also saw him swap onto the Tracer and the Genji, so he had a lot of impact overall, and to me he stood out.
How do you stop a guy like Prophet, who seems that he can play every single DPS hero?
Well, it is hard. You have to think about the fact you can swap heroes anytime in Overwatch, and so you constantly have to adapt. Now, the Dallas Fuel squad, I think their strategy is a bit off in general, because they're now back to basic in many ways, where it is the Sombra and the Tracer, and then Rascal on the Widow to just be another threat on the other side of the map. And it works so well for so many teams, so it's a nice strategy that works all around. But then later on, we get to point B, where actually Dallas Fuel put up sort of a defense with time on the Soldier and the Widowmaker. So we saw some signs of life from this Dallas Fuel squad when you get into the nitty-gritty fights and you're not really playing the strategy game as much.
Sideshow, most impressive player from the Spitfire throughout their second win. We already talked about Prophet and what he did in the first map. Who was the hero for the Spitfire?
Player, and he can play pretty much every hero, often the Sombra, the Genji, the Junkrat, the McCree, all of them. So this player had so much impact when it comes to the strategy involved in the assault maps and Horizon here specifically. So shout out to Rascal.
So we've seen Birdring, we've seen Prophet, Rascal is in the mix. What is London going to be fielding early moments?
Yeah, so Dallas choosing to run Seagull in this lineup, I mean, this was a fantastic... He just takes this tire all around the houses and a great finish to it. But focusing on the Dallas Fuel roster, they've taken Mickey out of the lineup and added Seagull for this kind of triple DPS composition, but Taimu's on the Roadhog, so you still have this strong tank core, and they were playing it very well. This is...
Once again, very strong performance from the DPS from the London Spitfire.
Yes, they were fantastic. And with Prophet and Birdring, you always know that you're going to get unbelievably good performances. But I'm also very impressed with Gesture and Fury, the guy that you just saw on your screen. This tank duo, we talk about pre-existing rosters or pre-existing synergy with London Spitfire. These two had never played with each other coming into this, coming into the Overwatch League.
Winning this match, they're going to go up 3-0 in the Overwatch League.
It all started bright and early as we saw the Seoul Dynasty dismantle the Boston Uprising. Some close games there, but as expected, it's Seoul advancing to 4-0. We got the Shanghai Dragons falling at the hands of the Florida Mayhem, who get their first win in the regular season, and we just saw a good one between the Spitfire and the Fuel. Moving.
They definitely had to deal with their own mortality there. Keeping the train rolling straight on. And look at how much space Rig has. The Valiant never taste death. And London hit the jackpot. Just a very nice play there. Wako, though, he knew exactly what he was doing. Pick your poison, essentially. There's a lot of threats here. You cheeky little man. I really felt like
Lunar as well as Spitfire, but let's go Dorado.
The Torb, but those Torb off the first defense, we can't overlook it. They ran Torb and the Reaper to try to hold off the first point. It didn't really work, to be honest. Torb is not that great of a hero at the moment, but he still did a lot of damage to make sure that he could stall out the point just enough. But what stood out for me was the DPS, of course. This quad tank right here. So the Mora we saw on Thursday gets her ultimate in 30 seconds. Unko got it in 43, so they can just steamroll through the first one. And when it comes down to OT, you're basically guaranteed to at least get on the point with this strategy. So Valiant went ahead and tried it again, but it just was not my favorite. When you go for the exact same play by the same route, you're setting yourself up for disaster, and London actually switched it up.
All right, we got to point out as well the fact that Rascal, he's like this Mei specialist, right, isn't he? He pulls it out in weird situations. I personally say I've been super impressed with Valiant, the way they've come along and how they've developed as a team, partly due to their fantastic coaching staff, but the way they utilize their players and whatnot is just brilliant. Soon as a playmaker in his own. However, I do feel like that was a bit of a downside in the final map. I feel like there could have been some adaptations a little bit faster for Valiant, but let's focus on the here and now that we're seeing right here on Oasis, and that's, I feel like Agilities was a good standout player for them winning this one. A big reason for why they won Oasis was his Farah play, was his hog play.
That hook right
just a brilliant play. This is not this. This is Iconball. We can still talk about Iconball.
We can talk, I mean, there are 5 maps in this series. We have gone the distance, and Iconball also equally exciting. It really felt like it was back and forth on this one.
Lijiang Tower, and I don't know if that's just because they weren't practiced, but against Quad Tank, Soon stayed on Tracer for this entire round here on this first control center.
I want to give you a bonker stat here. Profit actually hit 74% average energy on Zarya on this map.
Ridiculous.
So Zarya is the kind of hero that if you're at 0, you're useless. If you're at 100, you count as 2 people. He's basically at 100 the whole time with that incredibly high average stat in this Bird Ring. I mean, he just put on the show.
This is you mentioning
it. Was
like
punishment.
Bird Ring on the Widow, they didn't have anything to deal with it. At LA Valiant, they made the right switch later on into this round. They switched to the traditional dive composition, which is what they needed to do.
The Spitfire comes back from was looking like a compromising situation. Again, a map time to the Valiant looks so much better on, but they really tighten up the belt. And that seemed like such a dominant performance until right at the very end, but they were pushed all the way.
A fantastic offensive attack there from the LA Gladiators.
First tick done for New York, and they look like they're not showing any signs of slowing down.
The damage coming down from Remix and Sherborne.
Libero finds his 3rd kill on the fight, and now Savior will be coming in for the finishing touches. Pine gets his revenge. That's really impressive stuff from Asher.
It's a huge kill that New York picks up.
What a convincing dive from Los Angeles Gladiators.
Right, they subbed him in for this first map, and they just weren't ready for it. You notice, look here, they were running Hydration on the Farah. They made the switch to Genji a little bit later on, but they just weren't ready for the Pine show in general, because he completely shut them down. At Dorado, first point, you get massive sightlines all over the goddamn place. Look at him, he's just sitting onto the high ground, waiting there. He's got damage boost going on.
So I was really worried when I saw the composition of the Gladiators. Oh no, another dive comp here, no Sombra, no tank, what are they doing? But they knew exactly what was going on. They just used their picks as distraction to make sure that they can weed out the XL from the high ground and then pick the support. So it was actually really well thought out from them. But when it came to the second point, it just got way too difficult for them.
Yeah, I liked in particular New York Excelsior. They were playing with the aggressive forward.
We got that, Brent. We got that so far. So.
Yeah.
Like, we like New York.
I like New York Excelsior. Very controversial.
You just need to go full Monty right now. Just, then all of a sudden you got the New York Excelsior. No, that's not what you're supposed to think, please.
Puckett's awful at that, actually. He's terrible. The guy plays Diva like he's, I don't know what he's trying to do. He's trying to feed the enemy team as much as possible. If he ends the game on 20 deaths, he's Gucci.
Yeah, because he's just an awesome human being. You know, it's all about giving.
What a definition of awesome, man.
Puckett just believes in making everybody feel good on that server.
Oh, Hydration was feeling sick this game because on his Farah, even though they lost, he actually ended up hitting 32% of his team's overall damage, which is a crazy number. Yeah. Typically 25, you're already flying high, but at 32, he almost doubled everybody else.
So, you know, this last map here, what did Gladiators do to actually shine and take it to the New York?
I mean, all around, just very good play in general with the Farah Mercy. You can see this is their initial attack when they were moving in with it. A lot of teams are running it these days on Iconvolt first because you can jump over and use the buildings as protection with the Farah Mercy combo whilst your team focuses on the grounds, and it's just a very effective push attempt in general when you're trying to move onto icon walls, and it transitions nicely into the second phase.
And Gladiators were able to actually pick off the supports right away on their own offense, which spiraled the point out of control, but other than that, they...
Los Angeles Gladiators can't hold, and NYXL will take a 4-0 victory.
This is the most clinical we have seen the Excelsior so far, hands down.
Boston, they may have done it. Great pick for San Francisco. Making his presence felt in a big way here. San Francisco Shock, can they do it? Striker really coming through from his team in the end. Looks like they have done just that, and Boston got some kills. San Francisco, what a start. Big hype about a lot of people on this team. Baby Bay has been so accurate with those shots too. That is a quick win.
Personally, because we saw a different side of San Francisco Shock. They're a bit more disciplined in terms of the way they were going in and engaging. It's a different side to them. I haven't really seen it before, and it was very promising indeed, and it was the reason they actually took the map. I feel like Boston Uprising were taken off guard a little bit. They were expecting San Francisco Shock to maybe come into the map with the same sort of game plan they've been running in previous games they played, and that wasn't the case. And in particular would be the last final push for Boston Uprising, when they were trying to push into the final checkpoint, because they were waiting around. They were just basically shaving time off the map, constantly waiting for San Francisco Shock to go
be running in. I think what ended up happening was San Francisco, I think, recognized that quad tank is something that other teams are running to success, without actually identifying the reasons why this composition ends up working. And Boston keeps running this dive composition that was able to just go on the backline of the San Francisco Shock and continuously punish the supports. And they were punished so hard that the actual death count from both supports was 16 to a mere 6 on
their overarching theme and what they were running. That was unfortunate. That wasn't him. That wasn't actually him as well. Yeah, he got booped back. But it seemed like Dreamcatcher was dominating to begin with, but Shock did manage to turn this one around quite significantly.
Yeah, I think that the Shock really recognized that they were going to have a little bit more success with a Lucio. They actually were just switching off to the Lucio for Dak, and it made a world of difference so often. Here in control, it didn't matter a whole lot, but on the final 2 points, it really made the difference when Dak switched over. And the ultimate timing
point seemed like that was where a lot of the action was happening. This first point, though, Dreamcatcher again. He just seemed to stand out on this fair. It was unbelievable here at the beginning.
So I think what we get to see here is a cool development between the Pharah versus Pharah matchup, where this time around, obviously, Casper got the better of Baby Bay. But as the series progressed and we moved on to the 5th map, it ended up being, and we'll cover it then, but the Pharah matchup, I think, comes down to who's focusing the ground a little bit more. It's all about trying to make as much impact as possible. And, well, yeah, needless to say, I believe Baby Bay had a lot more impact.
Reliving the moments, I mean, Baby Bay, you could see he was certainly having an impact for San Francisco Shock.
Yeah, he did, but I think for this particular point, the one that stood out was Nako on the Lucio. His boops were just all over. Oh yeah, here we go. There you go. That's actually a double boop. So he boops the Lucio and the Mercy, and that allows him to take over the point, start getting control of the map, and you have the aggressive setup from the get-go.
I gotta say, both these teams, when they run the Lucio, they do look a lot better, right?
Yeah.
It's for sure. You can tell a lot of these teams are still uncomfortable with the way...
In overtime! Map 5, round 3! And my God, Bay are pleased with that result. Coming in, a bit underrated, it's safe to say, Matt.
The match between the Boston Uprising and the San Francisco Shock. But let's not forget, I mean, Los Angeles Valiant nearly won versus London Spitfire this morning. That would have been a fantastic win there for the hometown heroes.